There
Hey,
we are.
we are here.
Hello. There we
Yes, and I'll
go.
put our
Yeah.
names up here so people can maybe recognize who we are. I am Iris, and this is Margot. I don't know which way.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, the one that's not the other person is Margot. I'm Iris. How's that? And this is
She's
Eyes of
also, I'm
Indigo.
Anna.
Yeah, really.
White hair or red hair.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and let's see, Eyes of Indigo. We've been doing this since what did we say?
September of 22. Or
September
no,
of
2020.
2020. Yeah. So we're well over a year and a half, and time is ticking. And we managed to find what we call discussing. I'm trying to do things at once. Discussing weird stuff in a rational way is our motto. So, we welcome our listeners. We have people that are watching us live, and we encourage you. You're on Facebook or on YouTube watching us. Say hello in the comments so that we can see that you're here. Just type it in, and also if you're whether you're new or have been with us before in the audience, we greatly appreciate it, but we want to know that you're here and who you are and that sort of thing, because we love to feel like we're talking to people. We can kind of see numbers, but we never know for sure.
Yay.
Hey Lisa, I hope you're doing well. We Just so to make it clear, some people, if you're on YouTube, you're not going to see the Facebook comments. If you're on Facebook, you're not going to see the YouTube comments. So that's another thing I can do is pop them up so that everybody gets to see it. But we also read comments aloud because our programs, I've been working on trying to get them all. There are some already on audio
Archived.
podcasts through iTunes and any of your other favorite aggregators. So
Spotify. Yeah.
yeah, and then of course, so we verbalize a lot of stuff just to make sure that people who are listening and don't have the visuals understand what we're talking about. We also have the recordings saved, so if you ever want to go back and see anything, and we also another thing we have is the prequel, which was intended to be the very first show that we did. It was a recorded segment that we edited down to kind of show who we are and why we're doing this and what motivated us and what our backgrounds are and that sort of thing.
With
So,
credentials for whereof we speak. Yeah.
yes. So, if you're interested in learning more about us and our backgrounds and who are these two women that seem to be crazy, uh, you can go back and look at the prequel, and that's both on Facebook and YouTube. So, with that, I think I've covered most of the logistics. Um, Margot, do you want to talk about what? Hello, Edie. How
Hi,
are
Edie.
you?
Thank you for tapping in.
Um,
Yeah.
let's see. Here is the
The meme that we started with.
yeah. So, why don't you tell us about this, Margot?
Celebrating the 100th anniversary of Usui Reiki. And Dr. Usui Mikao was the founder of Reiki in 1922.
Mm-hmm.
And I myself have been a Reiki sensei and a Reiki author for a total of 19 years. So, since 2022 was the 100th anniversary, or is, and it was considered around March, April of 1922 that Usui Sensei founded Reiki. This is now the 100th year anniversary of Reiki, Usui Reiki, which, by the way, is the basis Reiki form for all other types of Reiki. All right, it's the most basic type, foundational type, if you can do Usui Reiki, you can do any other type of Reiki, pretty much.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it's an important anniversary for all types of Reiki, as it's the origin of it. And so I have written 4 books about it, so that'll come later in our talk. Iris is going to shoot up visuals as I speak. We'll see what happens.
It will be entertaining. Can I read your mind?
Absolutely. I'll try to give verbal clues, but we'll see what comes across in the translation. Iris and I have known each other for years now. We'll see what happens. And I'll try to help. I threw her a bunch of Reiki images and relative pictures to give you guys a well-rounded visual, as much as possible, of who and what I'm talking about. So, Reiki originally, the practice of Reiki, which is sending energy from, oh yeah, you can send a picture, put up a picture of that, of people doing Reiki if you'd like, Iris.
Okay. Well, and I was
Uh,
looking for.
Reiki is the practice of, yep, that's the Japanese word for Reiki right there. That's the chop for it. Rei is the top, Ki is the bottom. Ki is also Chi in Chinese and in American. All right,
I
so
didn't
Ki,
know that.
Ki and Chi are the same, are Chinese Japanese words for the same item. So the bottom half of that is Chi or Ki, Rei, Ki. Rei is referring to God, divine, the infinite, all knowing that understands everything. That's what that symbol means at the top. So, um, Reiki was the practice of Reiki. The mechanics of Reiki actually did not start in 1912 with Usui Mikao. It actually started tens of thousands of years early with the medicine Buddha. Those practices came through India and eventually rolled on through China, which eventually rolled over all the way to Japan. And for a long time, the practice was gone. It was, people didn't share it, or they kept it to themselves, or they died without teaching anyone. It was gone. Usui is accredited with bringing this back. Apparently, this was a practice used in Lemurian times and Atlantis times, and it disappeared with them. He brought it back. There were other people teaching other types of Reiki at the time. Every single one of those other types disappeared within months or years. Usui Reiki is the only original Reiki technique that still exists. So, physically, what happened? Usui Mikao, who is he? Where was he? Mount Kurama. And Usui Mikao, remember in Japanese you say the last name first. So his last name is Usui. If you want to learn how to say his name, think about calling cows and pigs in the old-fashioned way. Usui! That's literally his name. And his first name is also a country euphemism. Me cow, as in my bovine. Me cow. So Usui Mikao, or Usui Sensei, which is the most popular way, or Dr. Usui in the Western term, because he was also a medical professional. That's his picture, that sweet, calm face. He was somewhere in his 50s in that picture. He died at age 60. He was a Buddhist by practice. He was not a Buddhist priest or Buddhist monk at all. A common misconception. He was a regular layperson who practiced Buddhism. He was having personal problems. He was a government official in his time. He was also a very highly esteemed fortune teller, which was a noble practice in turn of the century 1900s Japan and 1800s Japan and earlier. He was a healer using a different energy system that was related to the Tai Chi Chinese practices of pulling energy out of the practitioner and giving it to the client, which drains the practitioner, right? It depletes you. His personal life was in the toilet, marriage problems, work problems, personal problems. He went to a Buddhist temple on Mount Kurama, and He went to study and meditate for 21 days at a retreat, something we would call a retreat, where he was mostly alone and talked to other people in the retreat and talked to the monks. While he was there, if you want to throw up those pictures, Iris, that'd be great. He sat under a waterfall as a routine meditation. You can see one famous picture of it. And the water fell on top of his crown. You can see a person standing under this beautiful waterfall falling over mossy boulders onto a person standing in the pool at the foot of it. Waterfall looks like it's maybe 20 feet high, 30 feet in the background. And as the water dripped on his crown, he got the information in the download about how to do Reiki, how to give Reiki, and how to teach Reiki, or instill the process onto other people. He was also told, don't keep this to yourself, teach it to everybody, which was not protocol in Japanese culture. So this was a temple. If you want to throw out any of the other pictures, that's awesome too. This is a temple in Mount Kurama. You're going to see all kinds of inclines and stones everywhere. It's a very simple temple, but it's got lots of buildings elsewhere. We're just showing you some of the popular structures in these photos. People go there, Reiki practitioners, all the time. It is known to be the birthplace of Reiki. So he came out of the waterfall at this retreat and started healing people. He said, I have an epiphany, a vision. I'm supposed to do this and I'm supposed to show you. And he started healing people on the spot completely. Whatever their malady was, it completely went away, not just felt better. He began teaching it. He taught it to his wife, his children. He taught it to people he felt intuitively guided to. He eventually taught 16 Reiki masters. He taught 2,000 people to the Reiki 1 and 2 levels, but only 16 people to the master level, which in Japan is the master teacher level, the sensei level. He died at age 60 due to a brain stroke while he was at a Reiki event where he was supposed to speak and present.
He had a stroke?
He had a stroke. His brain went, we're done.
Wow.
He had done his journey. He was supposed to teach this stuff, bring it to the world. And he taught his 16 masters, you need to teach this to everyone, everywhere, no exception. Normally, people kept these kinds of healing gifts just within their family to empower their family name, parent to child, parent to child. And he said, no, this will not stay in just my family. All of you, and you teach it everywhere else too. Reiki clinics showed up everywhere. More on that in a minute. So this was all after 1922. Japan was a closed society. Western culture did not know anything Japan and China was doing at the time. World War II had not happened yet. Right? And World War I was all about Europe and Africa, a little bit of South America. So Usui Sensei taught 16 people, taught Reiki to other people. He taught it intuitively. He would sing to you. He would say poetry to you. He would touch your head and declare you receiving of Reiki. And that's all. You would meditate with it. And that was it. It was very simple. That changed over time. And here's how. You saw the next picture is that I want to show you is Dr. Chujiro Hayashi. Hayashi was a military doctor for Japan. And he was best friends with Usui. They stayed together, studied, and developed Reiki together. He was a scientist. He was a researcher. He opened clinics for the research of Reiki and had all of his practitioners and himself document what hand positions they did for what malady, what worked, how much it worked, your height, your weight, your age, your gender, all that. Meticulous doctor's notes. He was a medical doctor, physician, all right, for the military, but he was retired. Very, very scientific person. He had to make the leap from the solid, 3D to the ethereal, and he did. He made it, and he became one of the biggest Reiki master teachers besides Usui. He was Usui's basically first lieutenant. He created, Hayashi is attributed with creating the Reiki symbols, which I'm not showing here, but they're easy to find on the internet. And he was attributed with the first four Usui Reiki symbols that he created. The fourth one is the Reiki Master symbol, and it's also called the Usui Master symbol. In Japanese culture, when you create something in a fighting or defense or healing method, you name it after your teacher in honor of your teacher. You don't name it after yourself. So Hayashi named it the Usui Master symbol. He showed Usui how to do it, where it came from, he channeled it, all this other good stuff. And Usui blessed it. He thought it was awesome. And he let him keep going with it. So Usui checked out at 60. Chijiro Hayashi went on. And as you know, a lot of Japanese people lived in Hawaii and in South America, I think Brazil, I think. But this is Hawaii, all right? So a lot of Japanese people were there. A lot of Hawaiian people had Japanese heritage from generations ago. One of them, next person please, was Hawayo Takata, known as Mrs. Takata. She is Japanese heritage, born in Hawaii in 1900. So she had health problems, asthma, and I believe a liver issue or a kidney issue, and a skin issue. She went to Japan, went to a Reiki clinic, and got healed of all of it within like 2 months, 4 months, something like that, with just Reiki treatments at one of Hayashi's clinics. Loved it, fell in love with it, totally enamored with it, tuned in with it, and she was female in a ancient Japanese society. But she was a westernized girl, lady, who had grown up in Hawaii. So she was aware of both cultures and both value systems. Mrs. Takata is a dicey character. She is a spitfire and controversial as hell, and I'm kind of skipping over some of the stuff she did to get where she needed to be. I like her. She was a wildcat. She was a wild card too. She manipulated Hayashi she learned Reiki 1 and 2. Hayashi would not teach her master because she was a woman. Hayashi invited Dr. and Mrs. Hayashi to visit in Hawaii, which was very popular in Japan, vacation spot. They came down, stayed 6 months. She made friends with Dr. Hayashi's wife, the power behind the throne. We all know. And that's how it was in that culture. So over dinner, after they've all had a few drinks, she's like, "You're going to teach me Reiki Master right along with your wife, right? You're going to teach the two of us together, aren't you?" And he's like, "Oh, damn it. Woman, you got me." Because the wife is like, she wanted to be a Reiki Master too. So he's like, "Yes." And he did. He stayed in Hawaii and he taught his wife and Mrs. Takata Reiki Master. And then they went back to Japan right before World War II and Pearl Harbor started, like within months. Remember, very few people knew about it on the outside of Japan. Japan was closed to the rest of the world. But Mrs. Takata knew about it. She became Reiki Master and became a whole rolling stone by herself. But the story of Hayashi is not done. Hayashi was a former military doctor. He knew how the Japanese military would work. The Japanese military knew him. They knew Pearl Harbor. They knew Hayashi had just spent the last 6 months in and around Honolulu and Pearl Harbor and all of Hawaii. He came back. They took him aside and said, "We have plans. You need to tell us where everything of military importance is in Hawaii. Where are their ships? Where are their barracks? Where are their ammunition dumps? Where are their planes? Where are the officers and the hospitals? Blah, blah, blah." And he refused. And think about in that culture how much honor versus dishonor, respecting your elders, respecting the authority over you. That took a lot of guts. That took some serious big brass ones for him to refuse to give that information. He'd lived there 6 months. He was close to those people. He loved those people. They were his close friends. And we're talking about bombing all and killing all the friends of a Reiki master, somebody dedicated to healing and getting better, not sending people in to kill you with fire and bombs and ammunition. It went against everything he believed in. And they told him, the military said, fine, you don't tell us, you are shunned. You're done. You're outside. You're gone. And in Japanese culture, what that means is nobody will talk to you or even look at you. You can walk down the middle of the street all day long in midday. Nobody will look at you. Nobody will sell you anything. Nobody will feed you. Nobody will talk to you. You are invisible. And eventually you will die because nobody will help you. Okay? Because talking to you when you are in an official state of disgrace, if anybody talked to him, they too would have been disgraced and suffered the exact same fate. So nobody talks to you because they don't want what you got. The only way to get out of that, called Harry Carey, called honorable suicide. You have to kill yourself. It's considered honorable way to get out of that dishonor. You're removing yourself completely from the situation, and that's considered honorable. So he committed Harry Carey and killed himself. Remember, he had clinics going all over the place. His wife kept him going by herself for another few years. And his teachings go on and on. He refined the Reiki symbols. He refined diagnostic hand positions. There's a Hayashi healing guide that you can see, and some of it's really weird, especially when you get into genitalia diseases and disorders. There's certain things you put in certain places. And we don't do that anymore. But
I'm curious though, because when you said that his wife continued, so if he was officially shunned,
yeah,
what kind of predicament did that put his wife in? Was she allowed to talk to him?
no.
Or was she
She could talk to him in private when nobody else was around. But she could never look at him or talk to him in front of the children, in front of the neighbors, in front of her family, in front of his family. Only when they're completely alone.
But he could still live there, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But nobody could touch him. Nobody could talk to him. He had to do it all himself. And you can imagine what that does to your psyche. You're basically put in isolation. So, and that's a good question. But she continued going. He also standardized the attunement procedure. Remember, Usui did it intuitively. Sing you a song, have you sing with him, say a poem, run his hand over your head, whatever. And that stuff still does work to an extent, depending on your awareness. But Hayashi standardized the attunement procedures that we use today. Reiki 1 attunement is different from a Reiki 2 attunement, which is different from a master attunement, which is different from a master teacher attunement. But they're all kind of related, and they build on each other. Hayashi did that. There are 2 more symbols in this practice, but they were made by the following people. This is Takata and her granddaughter or grandniece. Her name is Phyllis Furumoto. She lives in Texas. She keeps changing her story. Whole nother discussion. Don't worry about her. Phyllis has done a lot of stuff that's kind of weird, but her and her grandmother, Mrs. Takata, who's much more important, refined 2 more symbols that are widely used at master levels.
Now, when you say symbols, you're not talking about just drawings that somebody uses to represent stuff. I guess you're talking about symbols are movements.
Symbols and movements. To draw the symbol in the air is a specific movement.
So you're drawing in the air. I mean, I'm thinking when you say symbols, I'm thinking of something written and put in a book.
It is. It's written, and it's a hand gesture, and there are specific words you chant, and there's specific thoughts and intentions you're supposed to use. So it works on 4 levels. There's a visual, there's a kinetic, there is a verbal, and there is a spiritual vibration when you use them.
So
And
in all of these cases, when you say they developed a symbol, they developed all 4 of those
6,
forms or whatever
6 eventually
of what
symbols.
6 symbols. I'm talking about
They're
they
called
developed
sacred.
all 4 of the ways to convey those symbols.
Yes, they're called
Okay.
sacred symbols inside the Reiki vernacular. They're called sacred symbols because every single one of them is a hot wire to the creator, to the divine, to God, whatever you want to say. It actually accelerates that intention. And I'm going to say here online something that I normally only say to my Reiki Master students or people who are very, very savvy to energy work. The symbols themselves actually have conscience and sentience. The symbols themselves are actually living beings. They're made of energy. They operate differently than we do. And they have chosen to be consistently in this third dimensional awareness with us in this lifetime. And they allowed these particular people to manifest a physical shape into 2D. So now they exist in the second dimension as well. Okay? And if you burn one or throw it in the water, now you put it in the first dimension, which is kind of cool now that I think about it. And Reiki symbols are, yeah, they're all that. They're a piece of paper you can draw or a tattoo you can have. There is a name, which is also their chant. You say the name over and over, attached to each symbol. There is a spiritual meaning that you use an energetic intention. And there is a physical moving of your hand to draw the symbol over the person or thing that you want to affect and let the symbol drift down through the air, or if you do direct content, it'll go from you straight into that physical body or that physical thing. All right. But you can also do it from up here and let it sift through the air. Whole nother detailed discussion. It's a very concrete and abstract subject. That is Reiki 2 lessons. Reiki 1 lessons do not include Reiki symbols because it is such an abstract thing. I'll talk about more of that about that later. Mrs. Takata developed with her granddaughter, grandniece, Phyllis, 2 more symbols. Now, while she did that, Mrs. Takata was the first Reiki master to travel all over the world speaking at public conventions. Literally, she spoke to about 1 million people all over Europe, all over America, all over Canada, and so on. Okay. She was the first person to be a front face for that. Mrs. Takata was also a marketer. So she goosed up these stories about who her teachers were. She sold herself as the world's only Reiki master, which was not true because there were a couple dozen of them down in Japan. Remember, Japan was closed and we didn't have internet. All we had was radio. We didn't have TV. So nobody knew much about Japan or China back then, or Korea, until the wars came. And she went, and then after the war, Japan was really shut off because World War II, everybody hated Japan in the West. Okay? They were bad guys, which was not true, but that's what they understood. Mrs. Takata billed herself as the only Reiki master on earth. So she was the only one that had the sacred medicine. She taught thousands of people the Reiki 1 and 2. Eventually, her constituent. Oh, and she also recommended diets and exercise. She had a retreat center on the island of Hawaii where people came to heal and study with her as a whole guru, not just Reiki, but whole health guru. All right, nutrition, diet, exercise, meditation. She did it all. And eventually her constituents said, look, you're an old lady now. She died in 1980. This was in the 70s. You need to start teaching people master so that it doesn't disappear with you again. Remember, they believed she was the only one. All right. She knew better, but she told them otherwise. This is where, she got a little weird. Everything she did to the Western mentality. She was selling an Eastern idea to a Western mentality. So that means some things got stretched. Those things have since been corrected by the next person. Mrs. Takata did teach some masters, and I think she taught like 12 of them or something for what would, by the way, she taught each master for the amount of money that today is the equivalent of $250,000 each.
Holy cow.
250,000. Mm-hmm. We stayed with her for about 2 months in Hawaii for $250,000 in today's money. Those people went on to teach the next guy. I think 3 of her students eventually he studied, or 2 of his students, or 2 of her graduates. She died in 1980. 2 of her graduates eventually taught William Lee Rand, who's the guy in the beard with the baseball cap you see now, the white guy, very white. And yeah, I mean, he looks Nordic almost, or Czech or something. He looks very Swedish, Netherlandy, Nordsey. White beard. He is based in America. He is an American. He always has been. He is the world's foremost authority on Reiki today. He is one of the few people who is allowed to do attunements and have ritual inside of Stonehenge during solstices.
Mm.
This is the kind of influence he has. He also started Reiki in hospitals, in surgery suites, day patients. They can turn over beds faster because people heal and recoup faster and come out of anesthesia faster. So they like him. They like having Reiki masters in the surgery, in the operating rooms. And he figured that out. He also has championed Reiki in Christians and equating the practices of Jesus of Nazareth with laying on of hands, with the laying on of Reiki hands. There's nuns and priests all over the world who practice Reiki and teach it and call it that. This is attributed to him. He also put a giant as in maybe 2 or 3 feet across, giant gold disc with crystal, with like 32 points or 36 points or 15 points all the way around, like a big star. And there is a quartz crystal wired into each point of this gold disc. He has put one of those on the North Pole and one of those on the South Pole and has created a worldwide grid. He's also gone on to put some of those crystal metal disc grids at other important points, such as Mexico and the pyramids, the Egyptian pyramids, and so on. They're all over the place. I don't know how many he has now. If you'd like to learn more about what he offers a bunch of stuff. He offers retreats. He has I think a bi-monthly or a monthly Reiki magazine. People tell their miraculous healing stories. They give examples of cool ways to use Reiki that you never thought about before. Reiki art, all kinds of Reiki events to meet with other people, nationwide and international. He also has an international group of certification. You can be registered so that people can find you in your area as certified as one of his people. He also developed another type of Reiki called Karuna Reiki. So now he teaches Usui Reiki and Karuna Reiki. You can get certified in one or both. There's also a Holy Fire Reiki that I think came out of that he or his constituents came up with. He's got a whole industry, Reiki.org. If you want to learn more about what the amazing magic stuff that Rand does, I've emailed him personally before he got famous. I've emailed back and forth with him a few times. He is a good old boy. He's very sweet. He's actually extremely shy. He's not gregarious one bit. It's kind of weird that he has this much of a front light for somebody like him to be so shy. I'm sure he's not as shy as he used to be, but back then he was. So, and this was in the early early 2000s, somewhere around 06, 07, 08, 09 in there. No, 06, 05, 06, 07, somewhere in there. Then he has brought this up. Yeah, like I said, he's done Reiki all the way up through hospitals. And now there are over, tens of millions of people all over the world that study Reiki because of him and the people before him teaching teachers who teach students who become teachers, who teach students who become teachers, and practitioners all over the world. And it's a word that almost all medical people and alternative healing people, such as massage therapists, chiropractors, um, have heard of at least, and they're even familiar with it. Whereas 10 years ago, they would have said, Reiki, is that something you do on your lawn with the stick and the leaves? You know, which is a real
Yeah.
typical joke. A real typical joke. They would have 10 years ago. They would not have known. They do now. It's a part of the mainstream consciousness. Part of my journey with bringing Reiki up through the 100 years that it is, in 2018, I finally published my otherwise handwritten student manuals, and there were 4 of them. And I did that with the editing and guest writing of my husband, David, who is also a Reiki master teacher. Uh, I became a Reiki master teacher in 2003, began teaching then. I was already an English professor at that time, so it was natural for me to switch right into teaching. My husband studied and became a teacher in 2009, but he was participating in 2008 for sure. I did that frequently in Greensboro, North Carolina, and in the Triad. Together, we have taught over 400 people, and about 325 of them have gone on to master or master teacher with us. Very few people stop at Reiki 1 and 2. So the books are called Learn Reiki 1, Learn Reiki 2, which is what you're looking at now. Learn Reiki Master, which is the 3rd book, and that one has a blue cover. And then there is Learn Reiki Instructor's Handbook, which in the printed version has all 4 books bound into one cover. There's the Reiki Master cover. In that cover picture, you're looking at my husband's hands treating our friend Amy. And Amy actually wrote a foreword in one of these books. And David has written a few sections in one of these books. Misty Hall is another Reiki master teacher of mine who has gone on, graduate of mine who's gone on to teach her students. She wrote a foreword in one of these books. And you can see a picture of Amy right there. Soaking up the good vibes in the first hand position for treating others that Hayashi created. Remember, he standardized the hand positions for how to treat people. By the way, the hand positions follow the chakra system, also known as the endocrine gland system. And that's the first one on top of your head. Yeah, you can see she's pretty peaceful. This illustration is awesome. You don't have to contact people to do Reiki. You can hover. Most people tend to hover anywhere from 1 to 3 inches, but Reiki travels through the air, some people say even faster than direct contact. Therefore, this technique is excellent for people with touch issues or sunburn issues or open wound issues that you can't touch them. Reiki works with non-contact as well. Some people prefer it. And that's a great little illustration with the glossy ball in there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the most common mix-up, by the way, the most common question that I get, just FYI, a little trivia here, is what's the difference between a Reiki treatment and a Reiki attunement? Are they the same thing, different words, kind of close? Neither one. A Reiki treatment is a Reiki practitioner giving Reiki energy and practices to a client and or patient for the purpose of helping that person heal. A Reiki attunement is strictly a Reiki teacher or master teacher, a Reiki sensei, giving the ability to do Reiki directly to a student. It's not a heal. It does have healing effects when it happens. When you get an attunement, it does have a healing effect, but that's not its intention. Its intention is to give you the ability to do what your teacher does, all right, and become a practitioner. It happens on the first attunement. You only need one. Here's some more trivia. You only need one attunement for each level. You only need one Reiki 1 attunement, one Reiki 2 attunement, one Reiki Master attunement, one Reiki Master Teacher attunement. Sidebar, we do 2 or 3 attunements on our students because you get so freaking high and happy. It's awesome.
So even though
we hook you up.
somebody might sit through the class, but until you do the attunement, they can't do Reiki.
Right. They
That's
can't be
interesting.
they can't be certified. Now, there's a controversial discussion about this. Remember, Usui used to pass Reiki by just talking to you about it.
Mm-hmm.
So there are cases of people saying they witness a class, didn't get a formal attunement, but now they can do it simply by being in the presence of it. And I don't see why that I don't see why anybody would argue against that, because that's what the founder did.
Yeah.
The founder of Reiki, that's how he passed attunements, was by talking to you, teaching you, singing about poetry and love and light and religion. Well, not religion, but spirituality. He was a Buddhist. By the way, some of the Reiki symbols look intriguingly identical to some medicine Buddha symbols. Some of them are identical, which is real interesting. But I show that in Master Book, the parallels between medicine Buddha symbols and Reiki symbols. But it makes sense. These people were Buddhists, so they borrowed from what they knew. The majority of the symbols do look like Japanese writing. Not always. Some of them look like Sanskrit as well. So you have some comments here, which is awesome. Ashley just finished her Reiki uh, certification class with us. Hello, lovely ladies. Wonderful conversation. Looking forward to more classes. Me too. Thank you. And Edie says, I like that idea. Edie, tell me, which idea do you like? There's so many coming out. The intuitive attunement thing, or getting attuned over and over until you're high, which is what happens a lot when you get attuned over and over and over in a practice session. And what I'm referring to is during a Reiki teacher class, we need guinea pigs to practice doing attunements on you. And so
No,
I have, yeah,
you need guinea pigs to do attunements.
no, people, they're acting as guinea pigs, not real guinea pigs.
No, I mean, but how would, if somebody's not learning and they're a guinea pig, you can't do attunements on
They
them.
attune each other, or I invite other Reiki masters. I don't invite people to participate in the class who are not already attuned. Where did I lose you?
I don't know. It's like it sounded like you said you invited people to practice attunement,
Yes.
and it's like, how do you practice attunement if they're you're inviting people?
Let me go from the top and maybe I can help you a
Yeah,
little bit
there
better.
was something there because it
I
sounded like,
have,
I mean, attunement is when you're giving somebody the power to do Reiki, so
right.
they have to have had the class. So it's not just you're
Oh,
my
you can get an attunement without a class. Somebody can give you an attunement without any instruction. That can happen. You can ask for it, and the teacher wants to. I don't condone it. I don't do it. But literally and technically, yes, you can get an attunement without a class.
so you can't be divinely attuned.
Yes, that's what Usui did,
That's what I'm. Yeah, because I'm kind of thinking. To me,
and
that's sort of elitist to be able to
that
say.
that's a hot topic for discussion. Can attunements be received without contact or being in person? Can it be done divinely? Can it be done by intention? Remember, humans are divine, so can it be done by intention? That is a hot topic for discussion. In terms of teaching a class, though, people want me to touch them and do an attunement procedure on them. They don't want me to sit there and sing at them, trust me.
Well, I know that.
Yeah.
But you don't
But
invite people from outside the class to come
no,
and be
yeah,
attuned. That's
yes and no. I invite other Reiki practitioners who have already been attuned to come participate in class and let us practice attunements
okay.
on you.
That makes more sense. Yeah.
Right. So if I invite somebody who's a Reiki master, my students can practice. Ooh, that felt weird. My bed lifted up by itself. I'm sitting on a bed. Ooh, that was weird. My students, if a guinea pig test person, whatever, a practice person comes in, if they are only a Reiki master, That means my teacher students can practice 3 types of attunements on them, a Reiki 1, a Reiki 2, and a Reiki Master. If another teacher comes in, they can practice all 4 attunements on them.
That's if they're at master level, though, right? Because like a one can't give an attunement to a master, can they?
No, only teachers can give attunements. Remember, there's a difference between a treatment and an attunement. Only teachers can do attunements.
Right. And so if you invite people to come in and practice attunements, they are already practicing teachers.
They're just they're only receiving attunements. They're not doing it.
Oh, so why are they practicing?
Guinea pig.
But who's practicing?
We got guinea pigs sitting in chairs, and my student teachers.
Okay, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Are practicing on the guinea pigs that have already had attunements in prior classes.
Okay, but they can't do a master attunement to a guinea pig that's not a master themselves, right?
They literally can. I don't recommend it because you will make that person detox really hard and fast with no warning. I have done Reiki 1, 2, and 3 and master attunements on unborn children. Their mothers were already Reiki master teachers and gave me permission. We intuited. We talked to the baby, said, "Do you want this?" Blah, blah, blah. The baby did. But I surely did not teach them anything. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything. It was an intuitive conversation. It was a spiritual conversation. And the baby, just like a Reiki patient, the baby's body showed me what it did and did not want to do. We did Reiki 1 and 2 and we stopped. Waited about 3 or 4 months later, right before it was born, it said, "Okay, hit me with master." And we did a master on it.
Wow.
Because he was ready at that point. He's a pretty neat kid. He's 4 years old now.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
He's almost 5. Matter of fact, he may have turned 5 recently. I think he turned 5. Anyway, it's been a while since I've talked to him. But he's a neat kid. And his parents are neat people too. And you don't have to have instruction to receive an attunement, which is part of what we're talking about. And we got commentary on it too. You don't have to have instruction to get an attunement. However, majority of reliable teachers do want you to have instruction with your attunement. It's not required.
So somebody could just drift through and you could do an attunement and off they go and they could say that they know Reiki?
Yes. This is where the discussion comes from. How regulated should Reiki practices be? Should somebody go back to the Hayashi level of understanding and prescribe how we do Reiki? Good luck with telling Reiki people how to do Reiki. It hasn't ever held up. It's never been popular to regulate Reiki that much. Across the board, they agree that the minimum to each level is an attunement. If that person can hold that energy and use it at that level, then they are qualified as a Reiki person.
Even if they don't know the symbols and stuff, right?
What you intellectually think and feel is not relevant. This is an intuitive process. Remember how the founder did it? He didn't even use symbols. He didn't start creating them until Chujiro Hayashi showed up in his life. It's all intuitive. It has underpinnings and support in 3D and 2D support and regulations that Hayashi brought us in his practices. So it's an interesting crossover. I see your wheels turning. What else are you thinking about?
No, I'm just because I'm there are things that I have done that I wonder if it's related to Reiki that I've done intuitively, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know enough about Reiki to know if it is or not. And it's interesting because when I've had conversations before with people, people who do Reiki are very secretive.
Oh, you want me to talk about that?
Yeah.
Because that's not necessary. That was, remember, Usui was told share this with everybody. Mrs. Takata went, nobody knows what Japan's doing except for me. I'm going to own it all and make it seem even more mysterious and spectacular and say I'm the only one. She's the one that started the precept of you don't share symbols, you don't talk about symbols, you don't write them down for anybody, you memorize everything. And what happens in Reiki class stays in Reiki class. The second rule of Reiki is never talk about Reiki.
Yeah.
Right? That was all Mrs. Takata, and that was another level of her controversy that people love to look at and discuss and say, yeah, she did it to promote Reiki, but yeah, maybe it wasn't ethical. Depends on what you think ethical is. It's intention. Well, her intention was to promote Reiki, which is a good thing. Okay, so then what
But she was
about?
also making money hand over fist with it.
And it's a fabulous debate that both sides have legitimate points. So that was Mrs. Takata in order to boost the mysticism, therefore the Western value of the practice of Reiki. She added all these caveats of can't, don't, shouldn't, memorize only, don't talk. When William Lee Rand and his crew of researchers, but mostly himself, his crew was two other people, they went back to Japan. They went back to the original Reiji Ryoho Usui Reiji Ryoho clinics, Reiki clinics that were based on Usui practices run by Hayashi and his family after he died. And they got permission over time. One of his researchers was a Japanese person. Translator understood Reiki, Reiki practitioners. They're all Reiki masters, the three of them. They interviewed these people. Some of them were the original 16 that studied under Usui and knew him personally. Okay, these people were 80, 90 years old at the time, 70, 80, 90 years old at the time. He got to interview them and he found out what Usui really said. He found out what Hayashi actually really said. And Rand has gone a huge distance. He has taken a lot of shit. He has even been through court cases of people fighting him over restating what the history and the foundations of Reiki actually were that were going against what Takata taught. So there became a division, Takata followers versus Rand followers, but it was an informal thing. It wasn't a real thing. It was just a conversation point. Who do you believe? Who do you have confidence in their opinion? Mrs. Takata spoke off Phyllis Furumoto, her granddaughter, who carried on her tradition of self-promotion in Texas. She speaks from, I am the grand master because I'm the granddaughter and I can pontificate about and monologue about anything I want because I have a DNA inherited ancestral right. Those guys back in Japan that studied with Usui and Hayashi before Takata even existed, they made it real clear. Rand went back 5 times. Last time I heard, he may have gone back more since then. Last time I heard, he's been there 5 times. So he developed a relationship. They learned to trust him over time, which is how you do in Japanese culture. They made it really clear that there is no grandmaster. There is only one founder, and that's Usui. And his number one edict was tell everybody is worthy, deserving to know this natural healing method that we do naturally. All right. Learning Reiki is the process of learning to do it with intention. But you instinctively, you know what, that might speak to what you're talking about. You instinctively will energetically heal things out of your eyes, your mouth, your hands, your feet. Just calming touch. Mothers do it. People touching animals and soothing them, and they in turn soothe you. All that good stuff. This is a natural process. That there's a word for it if you decide to study these nuances in the Japanese tradition, and it's called Reiki. You can also study it under another teacher, and it's called quantum touch in a different practice. You can study yoga and learn to do these through body postures and meditations and breathing techniques. And that's called yoga. These are all interpretations of nearly the exact same process. You don't have to lay on of hands. You don't have to be attuned. You can just raise your awareness. In the Reiki tradition, you go through attunements. You go through an initiation ceremony with your teacher. If I'm attuning just one person, it takes me about 2 minutes to attune them. If I'm attuning 5 or 6 people, it takes about 10, 15 minutes. And it's a meditation. It's a breathing exercise and meditation. I'm doing most of the work. Or who the teacher is. The teacher's doing most of the work. And this is just a Japanese name for a universal process that humans do naturally. Good example I use, when you are rushing through your house and you round the corner of the door frame too fast and bang the crap out of your elbow, besides cussing, what is the very first thing you do when you hurt yourself?
You flinch.
Yeah, that's true. That's your face. What do you do with the rest of your body?
Tighten up.
You grab it. You grab it. You bang the crap out of your elbow, the first thing you're going to do is go, oh, geez, and then you pull your sleeve back to see what was happening. But you'll actually hold it and start going like this. You bang your knee, you're going to cover your knee up. It's a protective gesture, right? When your children got hurt, they fell down and they ran to you with a boo-boo. What'd you do? You reached out and took that hand, that finger, that knee, that face, that ear, whatever got hurt, and you wanted to see, okay, we touch. Our hands are natural healers, whether we consciously know it or not. So, of course, you've healed people, Iris, without having a label attached. Yeah, you were born that way. We all are. Humans, just like Earth and Gaia, we are designed to heal. The Earth is designed to heal itself. It grows plants to help heal us. We are designed to heal ourselves. We are designed to heal others. We heal plants. We heal animals. We heal the earth when we want to. Healing is a natural part of third dimensional existence. You'll do it automatically. Reiki lets you do it with intention. And it's one of the longest running ones in modern history since 1922, which speaks to its longevity, its veracity over time. It's lasted this long. There are public celebrations, parties, and festivals all over Japan marking this anniversary. Some of them have been delayed to next year because Japan is really struggling with pandemic restrictions still. So some things have been delayed to next year. Tammy asked, please.
Hi, if I have not practiced Reiki in several years, I have recently started practicing again. Are my attunements still as strong?
Yes. Once you are attuned for life. It is permanent. You can not use it for 50, 100 years, suddenly try it, and your hands will turn on, and you'll start benefiting from it. It's as if you never stopped. It's really cool. Yes. People like getting what we might sometimes, for funsies, we call it booster attunements. And it just feels good. You don't need it. It just feels really good to have that super powerful energy flying through your chakra system, making your whole body, your whole brain, your whole energetic system on all levels feel so good. And your spirit guides all get a hit. It's all awesome. It's a group experience for you and all of your energetic selves. So, past, present, and future, by the way, it affects your past, present, and future in positive ways, grace and ease and all those other beautiful qualifiers. But once you're attuned for life. Even if you never use it, you still have it, and subconsciously your spirit will give it when needed to you and to others. Good idea to treat food and beds and pillows and pets and cell phones and chairs and water and all that, as well as other people. FYI. So another question. Edie says, for an attunement done by Margot's glowing hands, do you remember that? Yes, I do. I was upstairs from Eclectic by Nature. You were in one of I think you were in one of my first classes, maybe second class, I don't know. I remember you telling me that you, even with your eyes shut, you thought I was carrying a lamp around the room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Edie's not the only person that has told me that. Several other people, I mean, I've attuned over 350-ish plus people. Many people have said, did you turn off the lights and carry a candle or a lamp around with you? I've heard that probably about every other class. They close their eyes during the attunement and they still see me move around because apparently I glow, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And no, I never turn off the lights, and no, I don't carry a lamp ever. Ever. I do remember that. She was the first person to see it and tell me about it.
That's cool.
Not all of her classmates saw it. Her experience was unique in that class. That was really cool. Fees figure in there somewhere. Guys, ask me questions that you'd like to know. This is cool. Tammy said thanks. Amy, yeah, go ahead.
About jumped out. Edie says I about jumped out of my skin when you got to me.
Mm-hmm. I remember seeing you twitch. Yeah. Apparently, getting touched by me when I'm in that state is a little bit of a charge. But if you're vibrating at the same level, which that's what I'm trying to do to you, is I'm trying to bring your energy up. After a while, it gets easier and easier. When you say you jumped out of your skin, did it hurt, or did it just feel like a zzz, or a little bit of a painless shock, or did it twinge? Did it hurt? Let us, inquiring minds want to know. Edie, comment and let us know. Previous comment, Edie says she did a Reiki share yesterday with a cancer group online, long distance Reiki. And she said, dang near knocked me off my chair. So apparently she was working, that's awesome, with a powerful group. Yes, computers are made of energy, therefore they will transmit Reiki just fine. Yeah, everything's made of energy. Everything can transmit Reiki.
She about jumped out of her skin because she was surprised to see your hands.
There you go. Thank you. Good clarity. Yeah, that would be a reality shift. Yeah, from human hands to glowing. I radiate Reiki all the time, as evidenced a little bit in the story I told Iris about today. I was hanging out with some other spiritual people by a lake at a park, and a male and a female pair mallard ducks came up and asked for food. We didn't have any. But, they poke at the ground and look at you and poke at the ground. They want you to drop food on the ground for them. And they walked all the way up to me and sat down at my feet and stayed there. The male went to sleep. Broad daylight, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, public, walked all the way up and fell asleep at my feet. The female, she sat down too, but she kept her eyes open and kept looking around. It was her turn to sit shiva or be post on guard. She took the first shift. And they stayed there for 10 minutes. They stayed there for about 10 minutes. I do Reiki. Other stuff happened that was weird too, but that was the most significant one. Yep.
Cool. I mean, it's been a good history and a lot of good information. So
Yeah. We hope to see Reiki last at least another 100 years. It looks like it will. As language becomes less and less of a priority, the word Reiki might disappear, but the practice will probably continue, since really the teaching and learning of Reiki is just learning how to do what you naturally do, but with more, taking what you naturally do and do it with more intention. Therefore, you can control the intensity and you can accelerate somebody else's healing process, which is something I have not said the whole time, and that's really weird. The practice of Reiki is to assist the receiver in healing themselves. There's no such thing as a Reiki healer. That's a misnomer. There are Reiki practitioners, Reiki facilitators, Reiki masters, Reiki certified. I do Reiki. You can say all those. There are no Reiki healers. We don't heal people. We assist them healing themselves, and that's all. We pull the energy out of the environment, from God, from our angels, from our ascended masters, from the universe, from the earth, whatever your belief system says, but it's external. You pull the energy in and redirect it towards your client with intention, which is the whole purpose.
So, do you, as a Reiki practitioner, explain that to the patient or whoever you're working with?
Yes,
Because that makes a difference in how the person being treated.
yes.
Because I've
Participate.
never I've
It
had
makes a difference on
Reiki
how they
before, and I've
participate.
never been told that.
Ooh, that's significant. I bet you they assumed that you knew because of who you hang out with. They probably assume you knew. You're a very learned, educated researcher kind of person. They made an assumption is intuitively what I'm seeing.
That explains why I haven't really healed from some things that I expected to,
Yeah,
because
it's your journey.
yeah, and I get that, and that's
Yeah.
fine, but it's like,
Oh, sure.
if I had knew how to, okay, great, they're giving me this to help, then I would have used it differently.
Reiki accelerates your own healing intentions, practices, manu- movements, new maneuvers, your own healing journey. It doesn't do it for you.
Hmm.
It's interesting. Reiki heals on mental, emotional, physical, spiritual levels, all four: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. Most people know about the physical when and hands on, hands off. Contact Reiki versus hover Reiki. I call it hover Reiki, non-contact, non-touch Reiki. It's all the same thing. I prefer contact, except for when I do demonstrations on strangers. I leave it uh, an inch or two, and I ask them, "Can you feel me?" 99.9% of the time, yeah. I go up over their clothes behind their back. They're feeling it through clothes, and now they can't see me. I'm like, "Can you still feel me?" And they're like, "Oh my god, yeah!"
Mhm.
Like, all right, so now I'm going to touch you, and I go in contact, and they're like, "Oh, that's so cool." I said, "Guess what? I'm a teacher of this."
Yeah.
So honestly, I'm watching them shift. The next thing is now they shift into worthiness issues, and they may go, "Oh, am I worthy to study that?" In their head, they don't say it out loud. So move them along that far. Let them discover on their own that that they're already doing it. They can just now do it on purpose instead of just spontaneously,
Hmm.
which is good. It's good to do healing spontaneously. There's nothing wrong with doing it spontaneously and intentionally. Why not have both? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, all the time. So we're at
Well,
10:40.
yes.
Woo!
So, yeah, I think we're going to bring that discussion to a close, but it's been very interesting and educational, and thank you for sharing. I want to
You're
throw this
welcome.
up real quick just to remind people, this is coming up this weekend. Uh, $39. You can see everybody live and in person, or on Zoom, or
They're
watch the
recording later.
recordings. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's an empowerment summit, holistic approaches to feeling better. Yours truly is going to be one of the speakers. But there's six different speakers altogether, talking about different approaches to since we've been speaking about healing, how appropriate. um, if you are interested, you can go to novusdreams.org. That's NOVUSDREAMMS.org. And that you can find out. But it's like I said, it's $39 for the whole weekend. So
which includes lunch if you're there in person, and we're talking an oceanfront hotel in Myrtle Beach. It's
yes,
awesome.
yes,
They hook Dr. Janet Hosmer is the host, and she makes sure everybody's taken care of without being invasive. Yeah,
yeah,
she's
yeah.
she's very cool. The lunch is an organic lunch made by a local chef who grows his own stuff, and his wife is a Shambhala Reiki master as well and teacher. They are totally groovy people. Your food will be, but it's a lunch is included if you're in
Cool.
person. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I want to say thank you to everybody for being with us, and
Yes.
we hope you will join us next week and every Wednesday at 9:30. And let's see, I'm going to show this. And good night,
Good
everybody.
night. Bye.
Thank you for joining The Eyes of Indigo with Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears. Music is Arcadia by Kevin MacLeod of Incomptech.com, licensed under Creative Commons. Visit our Facebook page for broadcast details at www.facebook.com/Eyes of Indigo. Show is copyrighted 2022 by Iris Carter and Margot Ross Sears.